be a long Bible study. Um, so, I would preemptively ask you that if you're watching the YouTube version of this, you get out your Bible and read along, but you don't have to if you don't want to. I'll be reading the scriptures aloud anyway. I will say I think it's better when you read along, just because you're reading it. It's not just you listening to it. People don't often have a great ability of listening to things. I'm an example of that. But we have like 2 minutes, so I'm gonna start. Oh, you know what? I won't start yet. I'll give it like the last 2 minutes, but I guess to anyone who's in here early, I'd ask how your day was. Mine wasn't too hot. I was asleep a lot of the time, so yeah. Okay. Okay, I think pretty sure everything's set up. Yeah. So we'll be ready to start recording, or we're already recording. But we're ready to start this Bible study in like a minute here. So thanks everyone for joining. Like I said, today's topic is going to be about discipline. So I brought this topic up mainly because I noticed that I struggle with discipline a lot, and I noticed that other people struggle with discipline a lot in their lives, and I mean like everybody. Like it's not just us as Christians; it's everyone in the world. Everyone struggles with discipline, whether it be children, teens, adults, everybody, right? Like I said, this goes for everybody. This isn't just people who aren't Christian, people who are Christian. This is every religion. This is every people. So, since it's 1:59 and now it's officially 2 o'clock, we're going to start. So, like I said, today we're going to be talking about discipline. Why are we talking about discipline? Like I said, a lot of people struggle with it. So, what does that mean? It means that all of us in some way struggle to discipline ourselves to do something. And I guess at first we have to understand what discipline is. So, discipline is when you train yourself to essentially do something that you normally would not do. So, for example, an example of discipline is that you train yourself to do more push-ups. That's a simple example of what that is, right? Another example of what discipline is forcing yourself to do homework. Like I said, discipline is not you doing something that is fun. It's you doing something that either you have to do or you wouldn't normally do, right? So, for example, people discipline themselves to stay at work for the full 8 hours and not call sick and go home halfway through, especially in today's society where virtual has become a big thing for people. Like people will work from home and work from work. They'll leave early and then work the rest of the time from home. So, like I said, getting back at it, discipline. So where does the Bible mention discipline? It mentions discipline in a bunch of places, and we understand that when we're not disciplined, bad things happen, right? So for example, if you're not disciplined, you can fail classes because you'll just continue to procrastinate on a specific subject, a specific topic, and you'll drop it, and eventually you'll just fail the class, or you'll just get a lower grade than you needed, right? So the first place that we're going to look at discipline is going to be Proverbs. We're going to read, I know I just highlighted this, but we're going to read the entirety of Proverbs, verse 5 all the way to, pretty sure it'll be, oh no, I think I have it here, yeah, okay. So, it's going to be, yeah, okay. It's going to be verse 5 up until verse 11. So, first off, we start off by reading verse 5, which says, "Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance. To understand a proverb and a saying, the word of the wise and their riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction." So, something that people always like to point out is that fools despise wisdom and instruction. What does that mean? For example, no one like inherently likes discipline. No one inherently likes to force themselves to do something. Discipline is not an easy thing to do, especially when you don't have help doing it, right? God often helps us with discipline in certain situations, and then sometimes he'll leave it up to us because he understands that we have the ability to do so, right? God, that's why people always ask God, "Hey God, I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with lying, God. I'm struggling with lust. I'm struggling with being nice to people, right? Why don't you just make it so that I'm nice to people?" The first thing is that doesn't glorify God if he just does something for you and you never have to worry about it again. Second thing, you haven't been disciplined. If you have not been disciplined on something, then and God just gave it to you, that's not that's not you doing anything. That's just God forcing you to do something, which yet again, God gives us free will, which is always important to remember. So you have the free will to discipline yourself so that the next time you get angry at somebody, you don't yell at them. The next time that you're lusting, that you flee from that lust instead of giving into it. The next time that you're lying or that you're about to lie, be like, "Oh, you know what, guys? I lied. Sorry. Da 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 da." Or instead of lying, just controlling yourself so that you don't lie and be honest with somebody, right? Which lying is probably the most common thing that people have trouble disciplining themselves on doing, right? Someone will ask you a question, they'll get nervous and blurt out something, right? That happens, but yet again, comes back to discipline. We're going to read on. Hear, my son, your father's instructions, and forsake not your mother's teachings, for they are a graceful garland of your head and pendants for your neck. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. If they say, come with us, let us lie in wait for blood. Let us ambush innocent without reason. Like Sheol, let us swallow them alive, and whole, like those who go down to the pit. We shall find all precious goods. We shall find our houses with plunder. Throw in your lot among us, and we will have one purse. Right? Then we'll finish off with 15. My son, do not walk in that way with them. Hold back your foot from their paths. So yet again, mentioning discipline right here. Hold back your foot. Don't follow what everyone else is doing. A lot of people today are not disciplined, and it shows, right? For example, any of you who have been in school before understand how unmotivated people are when it comes to doing work. They'll slack off and be like, oh, you know what? I don't want to do work. I want to do this instead, right? And they'll continue to slack off, and it ends up getting them in trouble. They'll fail classes, right? I'm going to be honest with you. A majority of people say school is hard. I don't agree with that. Like, there are some schools that are hard, and those are usually private schools, but a majority of people will say normal public school is hard. It's not. If you discipline yourself, like a majority of students, or not a majority, like a small percent of students do, you will get good grades. You'll pass school easily. Most of you might have heard of the smart kid before, right? Everyone knows what the smart kid is. They're the guy who doesn't watch TV. They're the guy who doesn't watch Netflix, nothing. They don't play games. They don't watch TV. They read books and they do their schoolwork, right? And everyone thinks they're weird. One of the devil's best tricks is making good things look weird, right? So the devil makes it so that we always look at people. And then again, that's just one of the influences you have. But you'll understand that whenever you were in school, whenever someone who was super smart didn't watch TV or didn't play video games, everyone was like, oh my gosh, you don't watch TV? You don't play video games? You're not on Instagram 24/7? You're not on Snapchat? You're not scrolling on TikTok? Right? Everyone would be super surprised and weirded out. And they would consider that kid weird. And in some senses, that kid would be weird, right? Like they wouldn't have the same type of social capabilities as someone who just is online chronically 24/7. They wouldn't have those same capabilities. For those of you who just joined, we're talking about discipline and how specifically the devil has made discipline look weird. For example, a smart kid. Every time someone sees a smart kid, they're like, oh my gosh, this guy doesn't play video games. He's not on Instagram. He doesn't watch Netflix or TV. He's so weird, right? That's not weird because back then people didn't have that stuff. And that's why they were able to focus more. Back then, people were able to memorize the entire Bible word for word. Nowadays, we struggle to memorize a single verse. Pathetic. Anyway, moving on. Like I said, the devil will try to make it look weird. He'll try to make you feel peer pressure to not discipline yourself, right? A big threat to discipline is peer pressure because everyone wants you to do what they want you to do, right? Everyone wants to influence you to slack off, to do something else, to go play video games, to go on Instagram, to go do whatever, except discipline yourself, right? Because like I said, you'll notice if you pay attention to your friends or just anybody in your life, even yourself. Next verse we're going to move on is to Proverbs 13, chapter 18. Poverty and disgrace come to him who ignores instruction, but whoever heeds reproof is honored, right? So what does this verse mean? This verse is talking about the fact that people who ignore the instructions given to them by parents, teachers, really just elders, these people don't succeed. Not in life, but they just don't succeed often, right? Because we obviously know that there are people out there who succeed in life, and they don't always listen to their elders. But even then, those people still discipline themselves to a certain amount. Now, the second part of the verse, but whoever heeds reproof is honored, right? Whoever heeds discipline. Reproof is another word for discipline or instruction, right? So, for example, someone who doesn't listen to their parents when they tell them to clean their room and just continuously lets their room get messy and only cleans it up every, like, maybe 1 or 6 or, like, maybe once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year, right? That person hasn't been disciplined in life to clean up their room. So, guess what? Later on in life, when they get an apartment, when they get a house, maybe if they even like get a girlfriend, boyfriend, or they marry, they're not going to have the discipline to just clean up their room, right? A big quote you'll hear a lot of people say, and I'm going to try to not butcher it the first time, is that when challenge comes, people don't rise to the occasion. They stoop to the level of the training. And people nowadays don't train themselves to do more than the bare minimum, which is why you see so many people in school who aren't quote unquote smart. They are smart, they just don't want to apply themselves. You'll see people in life who just don't know how to do basic things. Like, for example, there are people I know who don't know how to pump their own gas, which is just insane to me. Like, that's insane. They don't know how to pump their own gas. They let their parents do everything for them, right? They didn't discipline themselves in the slightest. The next verse we're going to move on to is Hebrews 12, It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom his father is not disciplined? If you are left without discipline, in which all have participated, then you are illegitimate sons, or illegitimate children and not sons. Right, and besides this, we have earthly fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them. Shall we not much more subject to the Father of spirits? Right. So, what is this verse saying? Pretty self-explanatory. Yet again, even your parents, even your fathers discipline you on earth. Right. God will discipline you. So, what does God disciplining someone look like? The same way that your father would discipline you, to do something, God will discipline you to do something. He'll discipline you to spend time with him. He'll discipline you to stop doing things that you would normally do, that worldly things, right? So, for example, God might discipline you to go to the gym. God might discipline you to lock in and focus on school. God might discipline you to spread the gospel more, right? Because yet again, remember, discipline is something that has to be enrooted in you. Discipline is when you're doing something that you normally wouldn't do or don't want to do. Not everyone wants to go to the gym. They have to discipline themselves to, right? Not everyone wants to work a 9 to 5. Not everyone wants to work in general. You have to discipline yourself to do so. Not every student wants to work on homework. You have to discipline yourself to do so. And like it says here, people who don't receive discipline are illegitimate children. Simple as that. So if you're not receiving discipline, you're probably not a child. Now, I know to someone that might seem like maybe someone's heart dropped when they heard that. Let me elaborate more on that. Oh my gosh, so I'm not getting disciplined every time I sin against God. That's not what I mean. No. Yet again, you have the free will to not accept God's discipline. You have the free will to not accept your father's discipline. You have the free will to ignore any discipline at all. Right? Now, what it's talking about in this specific case is when you're not being disciplined at all. So, for example, this is talking about people who are not followers or not true followers. For example, God's not going to discipline someone who doesn't follow him. Why would he discipline someone who doesn't follow him, doesn't even believe in him? He would discipline someone who believes in him. That makes sense because you are a son. You're a legitimate son. You're a believer. But someone, like, for example, God's not going to discipline your friend who's an atheist to stop smoking. That's a perfect example. He's not going to discipline an atheist to stop smoking. The atheist doesn't even think he exists or disagrees that he exists. Moving on, I think we have one more verse. Yeah, I think we do. Yeah, okay. So, we're going to read from Hebrews chapter 5, verses 1, all the way to verse 10. So, my son, be attentive to my wisdom, incline your ear to my understanding, that you may keep discretion, and your lips may guard knowledge. For the lips of a forbidden woman drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil. But in the end, she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps follow the paths of Sheol. She does not ponder the path of life, her ways wander, and she does not know it. And now, O sons, listen to me, and do not depart from the words of our mouth. Keep your way from her, and do not go near the door of her house, lest you give your honors to others, and your years to the merciless. Let strangers take their fill of your strength, and your labors go to the house of the foreigner. Right, so what is this verse talking about? It's clearly not directly talking about a woman. It's using a woman in the description because men often, guess what, are attracted to women. But it's using that as a more of a analogy, essentially, right? Because no woman has two-edged swords. No woman is bitter as wormwood and sharp as a two-edged sword. But there are things in life that are like that, bitter and sharp as a two-edged sword. So what do we have to understand from this? Yet again, people will lead you from the path of discipline, and it's so easy to fall off that path of discipline. It really is. All you have to do is miss one day, right? We all know that. I know that best, right? All it takes is one day of slacking off to get out of that. So what do we ultimately have to understand when it comes to discipline in the Bible? God wants us to be disciplined in every situation. He wants to discipline us to stop acting the same way we used to before we knew God, to act better now that we know God, right? In situations like that, he wants us to be disciplined to act differently from the world, because it takes discipline to act differently from everyone else. It takes discipline to change how you act when everyone else is doing something else. It takes discipline for someone who's in a room full of people who are lustful to not be lustful, because everyone else around them is lustful. And guess what? We as humans are social creatures, and we're influenced by what other people do around us. So if everyone around us is smoking, there's a high chance that we're influenced to smoke. But if we discipline ourselves to not smoke no matter what, and even better, if we discipline ourselves to stay away from people who smoke, it won't happen. If you keep disciplining your life, you're guaranteed to succeed. Now, will you always have discipline in your life? No. So will you fail sometimes? Yes, you will. Because guess what? You're human. You're not perfect. You're gonna lack discipline at times, and it's gonna suck. Like I told you, I've told a lot of you guys, I've had a lot of classes where I've lacked discipline, and I never failed a class by God's grace, but there have been times where I could have gotten a better grade in the class because I lacked discipline, and because I slacked off, and because I just was being lazy. Simple as that. And like I said, discipline is something we all struggle with, right? People often tell you that Christians struggle with each. People tell you that we as Christians will struggle with different things, and that we will all, have our own struggles. That's true, but there's something that we all universally struggle with, and that's discipline. So, that is the end of that. One more thing I do want to talk about is that discipline has suffering in it, right? Whenever you discipline yourself, you will suffer in some cases. For example, when you do push-ups, you suffer because your body's in pain, it's in stress, and it's like, hey, I want to stop doing push-ups, right? And if you discipline yourself, you can go do push-ups until your body gives out. Now, will that kill you? No, it won't kill you. It won't kill you to do push-ups till your body gives out. Your body will just be super sore and tired. But guess what? You'll get stronger after that. So when you discipline yourself and you suffer from that discipline, you will get stronger, which is the goal. God doesn't want someone who's weak. He wants someone who's strong. God calls on all of us and is prepared to discipline us to fit our roles. So I guess the ending message here is kind of a question. Are you going to allow God to discipline you? Are you going to start disciplining yourself? That's the ending question here. And I hope that's a yes. Otherwise, you'll be stuck in a really sucky loop for the rest of your life if you're just not going to go off of discipline and do whatever pleases you at a given time, right? So, without further ado, that's going to be the end of this. I'll pray out for us, and then that'll be it. I'll stay after for questions, as always. But, so let's start praying. So, God, we come to you today, trying to understand the Bible again, and specifically discipline, because you show it a lot in the Bible, God. And we understand that people around us don't always agree with your discipline. But we understand your discipline is best, Lord, because it's consistent and it will make us grow. I pray that everyone here, including me, and everyone who wasn't here in the server, everyone around the world, really, who follows you, Lord, and maybe even people who don't follow you, who will eventually come to you, I pray that they allow themselves to be disciplined, that they allow you to discipline them, that they start letting themselves be disciplined by you and start to discipline themselves more to strengthen themselves, Lord, not just because you tell them to, because they want to do it, because they love you, Lord, because we should love you, because you first loved us, Lord. I also want to pray for people out there who feel like they're in a pit, Lord, who they can't get out of, Lord, because they've just let themselves go so far. And I want you to let them know that they're not too far gone, Lord, because you say that no one is too far gone. You give us perfect examples of people who are too far gone in the Bible, Lord. For example, Paul, a murderer of Christians, who eventually became one of the poster childs for a Christian, Lord. I want to thank you for everything you've given us, Lord, the ability to have Bible study, the ability to read your word, Lord, as freely as we are. It wasn't like that 2,000 years ago, Lord. It was entirely different. And I want to thank you for blessing me and blessing everyone in this VC, Lord, everyone in this server, everyone around the world, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. Awesome. So I'm going to stop recording here. Like I said, for anyone who is still